something strange happened, which is that for some reason, an old Howard Stern show clip resurfaced. Back in the day, I think this was the Artie Lang era, where they did the butterface thing, right? So they had, and it was like first it was just like because the woman who they showed in the clip, she wasn't a butterface, she wasn't a dime piece, she was about a solid six, like she was the type that uh, today, Kevin Samuels, he said rest in peace, he said that Sweetie was an adjustable six, uh, which was kind of ridiculous. Sweetie's naturally like a nine, for being honest. And that was one of the few things that Kevin Samuels said that I just, I couldn't. I was like, come on, Kevin, you tweaking. But um, I think that this girl, the girl in the clip, you know, uh, she was. I mean, today they would call her mid, but if she fixed up and did her hair and knew what the right angles and stuff like that, she might get a decent response on social media. That's what these women know how to do. And so, but basically, at first that was the initial reaction, and then it was like what the hell? They're like, the people on social media were what the hell, man? What type of what type of segment was this, right? And it was weird because it's like it's somebody who I was born in '88, you know, and it's like uh, when I was coming up, I mean, I remember the Stern Show as a kid when it would be on E, and I would watch. They'd have like I think it would be like from 11 to 12. It'd be 2 30-second block, 2 30-minute blocks, right? And basically, like basically highlights from the show. I don't know if it'd be that day or whatever it was. They have one 30-minute episode and then another one right after it, and then it would go to Brooke Burke, who was like super hot back then. She would do like this travel show on E, and you know it's weird because like it's Gen Z just now realizing that that's what what the Howard Stern show, why that show was mattered in the first place. Like yeah, bro, Howard Stern. I know now these days Howard is like a liberal, Trump bashing, PC guy. I don't watch the show anymore, but I know it's not like it used to be. It couldn't be in today's climate. But yeah, guys, that's what the Howard Stern show was. There used to be this thing that was called a shock jock. Howard Stern was a shock jock. Opie and Anthony, they were shock jocks. Uh, Don Imus was a shock jock. And, I never listened to Don Imus. Of course, we know what Don Imus is. Gen Z would probably be shocked if they heard what Don Imus was known for or what he became infamous for. But, I was a big Opie and Anthony fan, kind of like after the fact almost. Like when I discovered Patrice O'Neill, that's when I went backwards and started listening to old Opie and Anthony stuff. And they would have, the Stellar Crowd on there. That was Patrice, rest in peace, and Colin Quinn and Jim Norton. He was a third chair on Opie and Anthony, and Nick DiPaolo and all these different guys like that, right? And basically Opie and Anthony were like they were like the Stern show, but I mean Stern was Stern is the ultimate, the mega, right? The Don Mega, as Ice Cube would say. And like I said, Stern was the face of radio basically for years. Insane ratings, made it as commanded a insane salary, which really has continued into the serious satellite era. But yeah, man, I mean that if people don't know the Howard Stern show, that's what the Howard Stern show was. It was hijinks and it was trashy, like lowbrow humor, and I say that in like the fondest way possible because I love the Howard Stern show. So many great. I mean, oh my goodness, and of course being in LA. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I never had Sirius satellite, So I was more of a, um, and then Sirius Satellite was more like in the second half of the Stern show run. I don't remember which year he actually got there, um, but I was somebody who, like I said, I would watch on E as a kid, and then there's so many clips on YouTube, you know. But I mean, just the all the different hijinks and the pranks and the bits that they would do on that show, and the way that Howard would, how basically what Howard would do is Howard would, use the people, on the show as like content for the show, and like turning them against each other and using their whatever like workplace drama and stuff in their personal life. He would turn that into content for the show. And you had all types of oddball characters. You had Beetlejuice. You had Jeff the Drunk. You had Hank the Dwarf. You had Elliot Offen. Those were the Whack Packers. And he would do all type of stuff on that show. He'd have Carmen Electra and all these different raws on there, and they'd show their tits, and they'd ride to Sibian. He'd have porn stars on there, all types of stuff, you know, and it was great, man. And I remember Howard was talking to Bill O'Reilly once, and he said um, that his show, um, he said that the people who like his show will listen for 2 hours. The people who hate his show will listen to 3. And the reason that his show was so successful is because he told the truth, and the point of the show was not all the silly like crude humor and stuff like that. It was for the guy, you know, who drives a truck for 16 hours a day, and that guy wants to be able to turn his radio on in the morning, and he wants to be able to hear somebody tell the truth. I forget what else he said, but basically that was what made Stern so big. That was his appeal, and it was a show for regular guys, and yeah. So for Gen Z now to turn around and try to act like they're outraged, it's like stick it, as the late great Hulk Hogan would say. Whatever the standards you have for people now, uh, you know, socially, society wise. They didn't exist back then. The standards now are stupid. Everything was way better back then. And Howard Stern was the hero, you know? They used to try to get on Stern back then and try to, censor him and all this different stuff. And he was a champion, man. That was what he represented, was free speech, and it was sad actually to see Howard become, PC liberal over the years. But I think he did that because he had to survive. It's weird. Eminem did the same thing. These are guys who, when I was a kid, they were representing free speech. I can say what I want, and that's what they were in it for. And then they changed, which is unfortunate. But you always remember them for what they were at their best, you know. But yeah, man, just for that, man, I'm gonna spend the rest of my night looking at old clips of the old Stern show, you know. Um, of course, I'm more of an Artie era guy because that's when I was, when Jackie was on there. And I know most people overall, of course, it's like the younger you are, the more likely like if you're like my age, like millennial, you're more likely to be an Artie era guy. And the guys who are older, go way back, they're more likely to be the Jackie era guy. I think most people overall would say the Jackie era was better, just because, I mean, I think that's how people tend to look at things. Like the original incarnation was like the best, and obviously Jackie was great, but for me, when I was starting to become of age and watching the show and stuff like that, that was the Artie era, and there was just there's so much great content. So once again, Gen Z and anybody else who's acting like they're like outraged at that Butterface clip and what the Stern Show used to be. You can kiss my ass. You can kiss Howard's ass too. You can kiss Robin's ass. You know?